Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 28 of The Lab, Epstein Hitting the Podcast. My name is Jim. Joining me, as always, friend, former coach, renowned hitting instructor, professional evaluator, Jake Epstein. See how easy now, after 27 episodes, it rolls off my tongue?
It does. You don't even have to look at your sheet anymore.
Nope.
The problem is you probably wake up in the middle of the night saying it.
Yeah. The World Series, we have to talk before we get into today's topic, which is a good one. We're recording this on a Saturday, as we always do. Halloween, actually. What do you mean for Halloween?
I'm going to be a U.S. citizen during the pandemic.
Good.
So
Yeah. That's a
good one.
That's a tough costume. But that's a tough role to be in.
Yep.
But this episode comes out, obviously, on Monday, November 2nd, the day before. Which day? National holiday.
Election day. Yeah, our kids don't have school that day.
Oh, really? Is that right?
Yeah. It's Colorado, right? You know, your day off, take a day off. You feel like it?
November 2nd is the anniversary, the 4-year anniversary of the Cubs winning their first World Series in 107 years. Speaking of the World Series, I want to get your thoughts on what everybody's talking about throughout baseball now, and Kevin Cash, that move that he made to pull Blake Snellzilla on Twitter. What was it, in the 6th inning, I think it was? What are your thoughts on that? I know you're pretty passionate about certain game strategies like this.
Yeah, that's a tough one. It really is. I mean, most people see it as, oh, that was a bonehead, move, right? Like, he took him out, and they ended up losing the game. But, he wouldn't have taken him out if that's not what his numbers said and what the numbers were that got him there all year. So you have to put yourself in his position as in, yes, Snell is cruising. Mm-hmm. This is the 3rd time through the order, and he gives up a quick hit, right? Quick hit. And I guarantee you before that inning started, he probably told Snell, as soon as somebody, gets a hit, we got to go to the pen. So you could tell because he just jumped out of the dugout. Like, there was no hesitation to what Cash was doing. He had his mind made up. As soon as somebody got on base or somebody got a hit, he was going to go to his pen. And he went out, and it was a very confident walk out to the mound. So put yourself in his position. What happens if he leaves him in, and then Mookie hits a 2-run home run? Mm-hmm. Right? And then now he's the GOAT. Oh, you went away from your, all the data that says that, you go through this part of the order the 3rd time and he gets hit, and it's, So he was going to be crucified unless Snell got out of that inning. Otherwise, if Mookie gets a hit there or he hits a home run off of Snell, then he's the GOAT for not making the move, and now his front office is upset with it too. So, I know what most people are thinking is you have to go with your gut. Now, the issue that I had was when you break down Mookie's numbers off left-hand pitching versus right-hand pitching. I have an issue there because he hits right-handed pitching so much better. Yeah. And Snell has owned him the first 2 times up. And then you bring in a guy that hasn't not given up a run yet against the Dodgers. So the move itself I had more of a problem with because it was he brought in a guy that hasn't been successful against the Dodgers, and then he removed the right matchup, right? The right matchup was a left-hand pitcher against Mookie Betts. So, that was more the issue I had. But, I feel bad for the guy. And I don't know. You have to go with what got you there.
Yeah.
And that was the strategy that worked for them all season. Doesn't mean that I agree with that strategy in that position, Yeah. I think as a coach, like if I'm coaching, even if I'm the hitting coach on that team, I know that he's mowing down and he's got his good stuff, and I'm probably going to ride that. I would have been upset probably as a teammate and as a person, as a coach, if he were to pull Snell out. Yeah, but I understand why he did it.
Do you think that Snell knew that he was coming out? Because his reaction was very much that of disgust, I guess.
It was. No, it was. Yeah, if you could read lips too, right? So he was. Yeah, maybe he didn't believe it. I don't know, and maybe he didn't know.
Yeah, I don't think
maybe
he
that
did
was
know.
just
There's part of me that thinks he doesn't know. I think Kevin Cash knew and his coaching staff knew, but I don't think.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you probably don't want to tell a guy that.
No. I don't know.
Pitching a gym.
I guess, well, the guy he brought in next, though, was struggling in the postseason. So I guess, I don't know.
That was just not the right guy.
It's not a knock on Kevin Nash, by the way, or Kevin Nash. Kevin Nash, the former wrestler. Remember him?
We could have gone him. You could have gone Steve Nash. There's a lot. You could have gone the other wrestler, though. That's pretty tough.
I thought of I thought of Steve Nash, and then I put Kevin and Nash together, and I got the wrestler. But Kevin.
We'll have to do an episode on him.
On his wrestling career. I'm not a big wrestling guy, but at all.
Right.
But, anyway, but I with Kevin Cash, I forgot what I was going to say now. Well, we're all messed up.
Yeah, we're all done. Yeah, Kevin. But Cash was, and he's a baseball guy, right? He's a catcher.
Yeah,
he's a former catcher.
Yeah,
I don't know if he was on the Red Sox World Series teams. I don't know. I thought he was with the Red Sox at some point, but it's a tough gig. But you know what? Like that team, I'm glad they were there. Should they be on the same field as the Dodgers and their payroll that they have kind of going on there? No. So I love the fact that they were there and they competed and they could have won themselves a World Series, which would have been amazing. And they're still set up for doing it again next year. And again, you win that World. I mean, I don't want to downplay the fact that it's 60 games because I feel like the World Series was still the World Series. Like it still had drama. It still had that energy. It still had the passion. The players were totally into it. At least there were a few fans there because it was in Texas. So I feel that it did have a World Series present. Now, do you have, starting the playoffs, do you have the best seasoned teams that are in there? There are a lot of players that didn't play this year because of COVID. So,
right.
It is an asterisk season. I mean, it's a 60-game season with a larger playoff pool. So, the fact that the Dodgers won that, they got a ring and, they'll forever be known as the 60-game season champions.
Yeah.
Right. I always go back to the Expos. What was that, 93 on the strike season when they were
94. Yeah,
94, and they were cruising and then their season got cut short. Well, nobody cares about that because they didn't finish out the playoffs.
Yeah.
But do you say, this was the team that had the best record overall, they should be the champions of no, it didn't happen that way. So,
yeah. There's I want to give you a quick Ted Williams quote since we're not talking that much hitting today, I guess. But I retweeted it, and this is from @BaseballQuotes on Twitter. Ted Williams once said, "Don't swing, think about the pitcher, what he threw you the last time up, his best pitch, and who's up next." Boy, that's kind of the meat and potatoes of the mental side of hitting. And I think at times we've really strayed off that. Coaches have kind of strayed off those mental cues when they're coaching in today's game.
They are, and maybe it's because there's so many different layers to how to call a pitch, right, and how to play into a defense, right. I will tell you that's exactly what I mean, that's exactly what my dad talked about when I was growing up. That's exactly what he put in his mental book was know the pitcher, the count, the situation, and and maybe not most importantly, but also who's on deck, who's behind you. He always used to tell me that all the time. Who's more of a threat, you or the guy behind you?
Yeah.
Like, think about that. Like, would he rather pitch to you or would he rather just kind of thumb balls and have you try to get out? And that made a huge difference. Once I got to college, I don't think that was as big as high school, but once I got to college, that was huge because I fluctuated anywhere from like the 3 to the 6 spot. When I first cracked into the lineup as a sophomore, I was in the 6 spot, and I was the guy everybody wanted to pitch to, right? I was the young guy. They got through the 3, 4, 5 guys. I was 6. It was awesome. I got, people would get walked in front of me. There was always guys on base. He felt like he was through the tough part of the lineup. And then all of a sudden you start moving up. Now you're hitting 3rd or 4th. And it's like, okay, now you got to figure out, who's hitting behind you. Is there a base open? How did they throw you your last time up? Were they successful? So It is a fun game, and I still think that's part of the game. I still think the pitcher and the catcher are on that wavelength. I think in college sometimes it's a little bit different because the catcher and the pitcher aren't calling them. You know, they're I don't want to say they're brain dead, but they're just robots. You know, they are just, okay, what is sign? Now I throw whatever. And so the coach is doing all that work. But I'll tell you what, the job of a pitching coach is, I mean, he's got notes on top of notes on top of notes.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, sometimes he doesn't have all of his energy focused on the pitch calling. Maybe he's got a guy in the pen. Mm-hmm. Maybe he's thinking about a matchup down the road. Like, and then he's like, oh, crud, I got to call a pitch. And maybe he's not engaged in calling that pitch all the time. So it is kind of a different thing, but you definitely still see that at the professional level.
Let me ask you,
especially the minor league level.
I wrote something down here. I wrote down lineup and I circled it. And you mentioned the spots that you batted in college from 3 to 6. Analytics may not say this, but conventional wisdom with some people may say that the number 5 hitter, this is kind of off topic from what we were just saying, but the number 5 hitter is the second best hitter in the lineup. Number 4 guy, obviously the cleanup guy, high power, slugging, OPS, whatever. Is the number 5 guy, in your opinion, are you of the school of that he is the second best hitter on the team and the guy that you rely on, sometimes even more than the number 3 hitter, because of where he is in the lineup, because of who's in front of him, and because of who's behind him, in that the deeper the lineup goes, maybe the little bit weaker it gets. Maybe not so much at the major league level, but certainly low levels in the minor leagues, and as you mentioned there a moment ago with college.
Yeah, I feel that the 5 hitter, I think 3 hitter is usually your most natural hitter. You know, it's the guy that's going to get on base the most. Okay. You know, so and maybe not most natural, maybe just a guy that gets on base a lot. You know, maybe he hits close to 300, he hits some home runs, but he also walks a lot, right? He's on base. And then I have my 4 and 5 guys that are going to be more of my high slugging percentage guys that will either, you know, hit a double to drive him in from first or hit a home run. So like I always think of my prototypical number 5 hitter would be Nelson Cruz. Like I feel like, sure, you know, he's clutch. He hits a ton of doubles and he hits home runs. He would be like a really good guy to have in that spot. So yes, I think the 5 hitter is crucial in the game. And I think, yeah, I mean, they definitely have to be your RBI guy. I think, you know, looking back at my career, I had more RBIs in the 5 spot than any other position in the lineup.
Can the number can the number 5 guy, take a Nelson Cruz, for example, here, can he move up to the number 3 spot at any given notice if that number 3 hitter goes down with, say, an injury or goes on the injured list?
That's a good question. I would say so.
Okay. Second, yeah. Because he's the second best natural hitter on the team, right?
Yeah, I mean, he could, or he bumps up to 4th and 4th goes to 3rd. So it depends on, again, kind of on base percentage between my 4 and my 5 guy, or it could be a guy that, you know, looking back on my career, I was slow. So you put me in the 3 spot, I'm going to clog up the bases a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, maybe. If I hit a single, you know, am I going to be able to go 1st to 3rd on a ball to center? No. You know what I mean? So you have that kind of issue as well with, you know, how a guy moves around the bases. So it was funny. I went to Fullerton and I think I hit 3rd. I hit 3rd. And it was like, we had a guy named Steve Woodward, and Steve hit like 400 that year. He was a transfer from Texas, switch hitter. God, that guy I bet he got 30 bunt hits.
Okay.
Woody was an on-base machine. So he would get on, and then the number 2 hitter would bunt him over. Yeah. And then I had a guy in scoring position like all the time. Mm-hmm. And then it was like they didn't want to walk me at 3rd because the 4 guy could, you know, hit a ball, you know, in the gap or hit a ball out of the park too. So I had more first inning RBIs hitting in the 3rd spot. I never really hit in the 3rd spot much until that. You know, it was kind of when I first started there, you know, beginning of the season, I guess, at Fullerton. So, yeah, I mean, the lineups are fun, you know, and you go back to, you know, you go to a high school level or even, you know, travel ball or something like that. And they just put the top 3 hitters in the front of the lineup so they get the most at bats, right? So there's so many different things. And then, you know, do you have another speed guy, you know, in pro ball that's at the bottom of the lineup, you know, a second leadoff guy.
Sure.
I don't know. I wonder what's going to happen with the DH next year. Have you read any more on that?
I have not.
Me neither.
I've also heard that They may keep the enacted extra innings rule.
Yeah, I heard that too.
What do you think of that?
I think it's not baseball, but I think it sure speeds up those extra inning games, man.
Yeah. Your former
That's a
teammate
tough
Steve.
one.
Your former teammate Steve Woodward. I wouldn't. I'm not. I guess I'm just a purist, by the way.
Yeah.
I don't. I'm not sure.
You would have loved Woody. You would
I'm
have
not
liked
sure if I'd like the idea of the DH in both leagues.
Yeah.
I'm more of a
Sure
purist.
makes the game a lot easier to manage.
Yeah. I don't know.
Takes away the fourth outfielder a lot more.
I just the game's quicker in the National League too, by the way, because the pitcher back.
Yeah.
The extra innings rule, I've experienced it personally. So I'm kind of for it, but I understand why people aren't. Your former teammate Steve Woodward, by the way, 42 years old now. His birthday is December 28th, so be sure to give him a text wishing him happy birthday. Just want to give you a quick reminder.
I'll be sure to do that.
He was I think maybe you remember this. He was drafted by I just looked him up here. Drafted by the Diamondbacks in the 34th round of the 2000 draft out of Cal State Fullerton. So
he could do it. He didn't have a great arm, but God, he could play defense. He was so fast, switch hitter. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was the perfect Texas guy. You know, he was from California, so I think that's why he transferred in with me. We were both kind of like senior transfers. Mm-hmm. And he just, he was kind of left. I think he was a left fielder. He had a left fielder arm. He may have been a center fielder, but he could run. He could play some defense. I mean, he could bunt. I'd never seen a guy able to bunt like that. And that's just attributed to he came out of the Texas. He may have been a junior college guy, then gone to Texas, then come on. Hey, but you spend a year in Augie's program like Fullerton, it doesn't matter. You become that's all you do is bunt. Like they just pound that in your head.
You get on plane with the pitch with the bunt, use your legs. Correct.
That's it. Preset. So the Garrido, Fuller now. I mean, you can go Garrido, you can go Horton, you can go Vanderhook now. That whole lineage of Fullerton coaches, it's all taught, and all those practice plans are probably still the same. I remember Woody telling me he went from Texas to Fullerton. He's like, "This is the same practice point. Like we do the same thing as we're doing here, because the system worked." And that's and Garrido molded all those guys and how to prepare players for competition. And it was pretty neat to see that. But all preset. So if you look at Texas probably isn't like this now. Price is a different tree, coaching tree. But hey, you look at Fullerton. Any of the guys, let's see, Jason Gill now is at USC. He's a Fullerton guy. Preset meaning, okay, there's a runner on first base. I'm sacrificing. I'm going to bunt to first. I'm going to preset my angle to first base. Mm-hmm. I'm going to square early. Everybody in the world knows I'm bunting. I'm going to square, before he comes set. I'm going to sit there. I'm going to preset my angle to first base, and then all I got to do is catch it. I don't have to rudder my bat at all. Yeah. Or first and second, I'm going to preset to third. So it's funny. You'll see that, those things, when the college playoffs start, and you'll see those schools, and I'm like, okay, that's from that coaching tree, or that's from this coaching tree. When I was at Mizzou, they didn't show till real late. Like Beezer's philosophy was, I don't want to show until really late, and they would wait till the pitcher was in his windup, and then they would square around. So it was just kind of a different setup.
Okay. So you think the practice plans are still kind of in play?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure the practice plans somewhat have adjusted, but I think the same. Yeah, God, looking back, like individual defense, we always started with this. We started with this, obviously you get your stretch, but then we would do these little like individual defense. If you were corner guys or middle infield guys, we do that for and it was to a T, like it was to a minute. Mm-hmm. You would do your little, individual defense drills. Then you'd go into regular ground balls. Then you'd go into outfield defense. Then we would break up into, the hitting, but every hitting station had a purpose. I think at Fullerton we had 4. Did we have 3 cages down the right field line and 1 down the left field line? So we either had 4 or 5 different rotations, and 60% of those were bunting.
Okay. Yeah, that's not
right. I mean,
it's not a bad idea.
No, but that's how we won a lot of games on players on teams that they couldn't defend the bunt. Yeah, they knew the bunt was coming, but they made a bad throw. Or a pitcher slipped because, on the West Coast it gets real dewy and the fog rolls in and it gets slippery.
Sure.
So you get a pitcher who's not maybe the most graceful guy busting off the mound hard, having to plant, he slips, throws the ball away, boom. you get free outs and free runs. So that was part of the process. I think teams and college programs are much better prepared on defense now than they were, maybe, especially softball. You go to softball, it's like the whole softball motto was let's make the defense make mistakes. Well, now the defense doesn't make mistakes, so we can't hit ground balls all the time. Now we got to hit dry balls.
Yeah, and a lot of college coaches nowadays are using more analytics as well, so that's certainly helping them out too. By the way, one quick question I have: what did you run the 60 in? Because you always say, it seems like every week now on the show, that you were slow.
It was slow. I think it was 7.5.
Ooh.
Oh, it wasn't pretty. No, it was mid 7. 7.5. I mean, it was so bad that we had scout day.
Oh boy.
My junior year, and we went to the track. I don't know why. I should have run it on the track. Would have been faster on the track, right?
More traction.
Yeah. Well, just harder ground, right? Not spikes.
Yeah.
So we go to the track to run the 60, and the scouts were like, "Hey, App, you don't need to run it this year."
Nope.
Like we know it's not going to get better. And I was faster that year too. I was so fast I pulled a hamstring. That's what my dad told me. I did right before the season started. I was like, "Damn, I feel fast today." We were working out indoors, on turf.
Yeah.
And I forget which coach it was. They're like, that was the best, home to first time you've had. I'm like, Coach, I feel so much faster this fall. He's like, that was like really good. I'm like, thanks. So then we're running like first to thirds, at the end for conditioning. And I'm feeling it, right? I feel like a butterfly out there. And then I round second base and pop my hamstring about a week before the season started.
Oh, my God. Yeah, that's a bad feeling, isn't it?
Oh,
popping the hamstring. It doesn't just hurt, but you're like, oh no, that's not good.
Well, you just know
it's one of those things.
You're done. It lingered all year.
What do you think the average 60 time is for major league outfielders?
Major league outfielders
minus a Chris Taylor and a Kevin Kiermaier. Average outfielder, corner outfielder. Juan Soto.
6'7".
6'7".
6'5". Yeah.
You think Juan Soto runs a 6'7"?
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know. What does he run?
I don't know.
What do you think he runs?
I would have said he hovers around 7.
7? Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think guys are pretty damn – I don't know. I watched –
Blackman runs probably a 6'6", 6'7".
Yeah.
But
I think a lot of guys run 6'5s that we don't even –
Wow, 6'5".
Yeah. I know. They move.
Really
like Trevor
fast.
Story. Well,
yeah.
That guy needs to get paid. He's a 5-star tool, man. I mean, that guy does everything.
All right, what do you think Arenado runs in the 60?
Ooh, that's good. 6'9".
6'8", 6'9".
Yeah.
I guess I look more though at foot speed. If they have foot speed, then they'll have that. Like Brett Gardner has
quickness.
He has foot speed, so he'll always be somewhat fast, even as he gets older. Or
first step guy
enters closer and closer to his 40s. But I look at a guy like Harper who doesn't have the foot speed. He's just fast for his age. He may slow down. Juan Soto doesn't have foot speed. I think he's like around 7, maybe 7.
Oh, he might. I haven't seen him much, but I always see these guys as much faster. I think he just dogs everything. That's what it is. He hits a ground ball. He's just going to dog it.
Could be.
He didn't want to pull that hamstring.
No. No, the Nationals don't want him to do that either. No. All right, well, we're going to get into the episode here. Before we do, though, we have to talk about what's going on at the lab this week. We haven't done a lab commercial in a couple of weeks here because you've been busy with your certification courses.
Yeah.
What's going on at the lab? I haven't gotten any emails from the lab recently.
Yeah.
What is going on at the lab? What specials do we have here?
We're preparing for winter break because I've had a lot of interest. A lot of college players want to come in over break. So we are now. This would be nationally. Players from all over. We're going to do a 4-day camp right after Christmas, 27th through the 30th. 4 hours a day. We're going to utilize the whole facility. We're going to have live at bats. We have some guys, some Big 12 players that are somewhat local that are coming, or at least around the state. I have some guys coming from, obviously some other states from Florida coming in. So that'll be really fun to be able to create kind of a little quasi environment, D1 competition environment with players from different conferences. That'll be kind of fun. And then we're doing the same thing for softball too. We're doing like kind of a high school college prep for softball players that same week. So that's the big thing. Otherwise, our membership classes are just filling up. We're doing awesome. Kids are doing great. They have a good time. So we are trucking along.
That's great to hear. So for more information, be sure to log on to thelabbcs.com. Episode number 28, the Lab Epstein Hitting Podcast. Thank you for joining us as always. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast. New episodes every Monday at 9. And check out our YouTube page as well with clips and previous episodes that are continuing to be uploaded throughout the weeks as they pass on by. Follow us on Instagram at Epstein Hitting, at Jim Taran on Twitter, same handles as well. So let's get into today's episode. We're talking about the Cubs World Series in 2016, Game 7 of the World Series, where the Cubs finally broke that 107-year curse. And looking back at my research this week and all the prep that I did, they won the World Series, by the way, on the 100th anniversary of when they started playing at Wrigley Field. Go figure. They won 103 games, first place for the first time in 17 years. It was 17 years, believe it or not, for a big market team that was finally in first place going into the postseason in the National League Central. I think the three best teams. I thought that was a great postseason for me personally. I was into every single game. That was right after I was hired by the Blue Jays, in fact. But I wasn't scheduled to start. My contract didn't start until January. So I had those couple of months there where I was just sitting and watching baseball and getting prepared for the Blue Jays gig. But I was in Washington, D.C. at the time, and a lot of people thought that the Nationals were the best team going in. And some people thought that the Cubs were the favorite. Others thought the Dodgers were the best team going in. We didn't really have a clear-cut favorite. I think this year's postseason, you could make the argument that the clear-cut favorite team was the Dodgers. They were the best team, I think, just in general throughout baseball going into the postseason, even a little bit better than the Braves. But that postseason with those three teams, at least in the National League, you didn't really know. It was kind of a toss-up who was going to have a shot to win the World Series.
Yeah, it was it was fun because of the Indians, right? Who doesn't love? That World Series between Cleveland and Chicago. Yeah, that's just, as a fan, that was fun, right? You have two teams that are really want to win a World Series for their town. Probably one more than the other, but and then we had ties to I know Rajay Davis, and he's such a good dude. And then that home run, I think, was that Game 5?
That was Game 7.
Home run?
He hit the grand slam in Game 7, which we will get
tie
to.
It?
To tie it. Hit it off Aroldis Chapman in the 8th. We will get to that. But no, he was one of the players for the Indians.
Yes.
One of those guys, I don't want to call him a utility guy, but one of those
pieces. He was a fourth outfielder.
Okay, fair.
Third, fourth outfielder.
Not part of the core, but he was that side piece, if you will, that helped fill the puzzle. And another guy who was sort of like that was Addison Russell as well for the Cubs. Addison Russell, no longer with Chicago. He had some problems off the field, but I never looked at him as a star. I don't know about you.
He was supposed to be, though. He was
supposed to be, but he never
turned
turned out to be such. He was highly touted when he was in the Oakland system. But the Cubs core, this is, I think, how you know their core was so good at the time, because up the middle, they were pretty good up the middle, but they didn't have that one big piece, which was a star shortstop, which a lot of teams that are really good and go to the postseason and win the World Series have. I think that tells you right there that the Cubs core with Rizzo and Bryant and
Baez was just coming in, right?
Yeah, and some of their pitchers, it was just that good. They were that good of a core.
Yeah. It was. It was a balanced team. It was, Dexter Fowler was on that team. And, he's never been a superstar guy, right? He's just kind of a guy you can throw out there. He's going to make great plays on defense. He's going to get some hits. And if he runs into something, it's like, that's huge. Yeah. But they had a few of those guys, right? Because and Hayward was, I believe, awful that year, if I'm not mistaken. That was not a big, good year for him. He was really frustrated and struggling, especially in the playoffs. So, that was a team win, and that was cool to see, right? Nobody, you had Zobrist. You just had a lot of guys that were just
David Ross,
David Ross, right? Good personalities. It was probably a great clubhouse. guys got along, personalities matched. But I mean, they don't have to get along. I mean, my dad's World Series team in '72, there were, like at least 3 or 4 clubhouse fights, that year. Like that was just the way it was. So you don't have to get along if you guys perform on the field and you all have the same goal once you're out on the field. But this team looked like a group of guys that meshed well. And that's probably what, Theo Epstein, put together when assembling that roster.
Yeah. Well, back then when there was 4 fights, did your dad ever get in any fights in the clubhouse?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Why do you think there were 4 fights?
Oh, okay. So he was
Big Mike. No, he wasn't. So, I mean, Sal Bando is one of his good buddies.
Yeah.
I mean, Sal and Reggie got into it quite a bit. My dad. You need to look at that article. There's an article. Just type it into Google. The time Reggie Jackson got his butt kicked.
Oh, really?
It's like one of the greatest articles. I don't know if it was in SI or what, but I mean, it was. I knew the story that my dad told me, but that story was a lot nicer than the story that got published. So they interviewed a lot of the guys that were there.
Yeah.
And it's a wonderful article. Yeah, just Google it. The time Reggie Jackson got his butt kicked or something like that. I mean, he may have killed him. My dad was that, like, he was a
your dad has big hands.
Oh,
80 hands.
Yeah,
I'm gonna Google that. And
230-pound like linebacker coming at you with no pads on.
Yeah, good luck.
That's probably not.
I'm going to Google that, and we'll discuss it on the opening segment of next week's show. Nowadays, when you get in fights in clubhouses, you just unfriend each other on Facebook and unfollow each other on Twitter and Instagram.
That's nobody talks to each other anymore.
Times are a little bit different. Yeah, that's right. They don't talk to players don't talk to each other now as it is. So anyway, that's why there's no more fights, I guess. But going back to what we were saying with you mentioned Dexter Fowler there, and he had a good year in 2016. It led him to a new contract with the St. Louis Cardinals. What do you think of Fowler? What do you think of Fowler? He actually homered to lead off Game 7. I'm going to set the scene here in just a moment. But what do you think of his career? I mean, he's had kind of an up-and-down career. At times he's been a disappointment. Other times he's made a lot of money because he was clutch. And then he goes back to being kind of a disappointment again, but in a different context. What do you make of his career?
It's funny. I had a meeting with the Rockies and their front office probably, I don't know, what was this, 2016, maybe 2013, maybe 2012. I'm trying to remember when it was. There was a guy named Ian Stewart that was with them and struggling, and so they were trying to kind of figure out what was wrong with him. So I went in and broke down Stewart, Fowler, and Kris Iannetta. Those were the 3 guys that I chose to kind of, go through. And so Fowler was, left-handed, he's not a gifted left-handed hitter. He just has really good athleticism and eye-hand coordination, but his swing mechanically is not good left-handed. And then, right-handed, it's much better, mechanically, but he doesn't get as many at-bats that way. And then Ian Stewart had just a big hole in the swing. So I told him, this is what needs to be fixed, and this is how you fix it. And instead of them employing somebody like me for a relatively very cheap price, they released him 3 days later or something like that. A guy that really had fantastic talent, and nobody wanted to fix the issue that he had with his swing that he did at launch. Like, he just used his arms too early in the swing, and when you use your arms too early in the swing, they go down, and then it creates a hole when you bring them back up. So anyway, getting back to Fowler, I never was, a huge – I feel like, hey, Dexter Fowler is going to be a solid player. Like, he's going to hit 260. He's going to hit 10 or 15 home runs if it was Colorado. He's going to hit 10 or 12 home runs. He's going to run. He's going to go first to third. He's going to score from second base on balls that, most people don't score on because he has really good baseball instincts. He's going to play good defense. But as an offensive guy, he wasn't a leadoff hitter to me because of his swing and miss rate and his foul rate. Like, that didn't fit for me. I had him more of like maybe a 7th to 8th hitter. If he wanted to bunt more, he could maybe go in the 2 spot, but he wasn't, he's a big, he's a pretty tall guy. He wasn't much of a bunter. So I would have loved to spend a couple months with Dexter Fowler because I really feel like what he could add from the left side would have probably added 25 points to his batting average and probably close to 10 home runs a year. He just didn't finish the swing. He just alligator armed most everything. He just has a kind of a funky hand action. And I don't know. I always felt that if someone or I could fix that, he could have been way more consistent than he is now. I mean, why would you, maybe he doesn't want to mess with anything too, right? He's like, I'm a big leaguer. The Cardinals just signed me, to a big contract, which I didn't really live up to, but I got paid and I'm in the big leagues. So why should I need to change? And, sometimes that's not a bad route to take if you're making money and you're setting up your grandkids.
A couple of other names I want to throw out again, where this is kind of a Cubs-focused episode, not so much on the Indians, because the Cubs obviously won Game 7 of that World Series. But one name I want to throw out at you first, Kris Bryant, who was 7 for 26 in that World Series. He had 269, 8 strikeouts. Overall, 26 at-bats, 8 strikeouts, not too bad, especially for what the strikeout pandemic, go back and listen to that in our archived episodes and what it's become. But he sort of follows his father, what your dad always has been teaching. Your dad is certainly certified from Ted Williams, but he kind of follows the Ted Williams model as well. And you've done a breakdown on your own separate YouTube page of Kris Bryant and his swing, and how at times it can be very steep with his swing plane and a little bit loopy as well. And how if he misses a pitch and fouls it straight back, he has a bigger chance to be late on certain pitches.
Yeah, I saw it when he first came up. So this is special.
Yeah.
Like, this is a special human being. Like, you talk about Fowler and you can talk about Rizzo and you can talk about Schwarber or whatever on that team. Bryant is special. Like, his hands are special. He is quicker than most. He's more explosive than most. And his mechanics are very good, except for his barrel up. Now, he was trained to get to the bottom of the ball, right? Get to the bottom of the ball, get to the bottom of the ball. I don't care what you do. Well, in order to do that, you got to drop your barrel. So he gets exposed. We saw it when he came up. I did that analysis maybe his rookie year or something. I'm like, this is going to be what he fights his whole career. If he ever hits above 265, 260, that's going to be a fantastic year for him, right? But I do think that he's flattened out throughout the years to try to catch up to those pitches. His lower body is excellent. His mechanics are excellent. He just kind of swings up more than the industry average right now. I think if he was playing in the 90s when Mark McGwire was playing and everybody was trying to throw the ball down, and sinking balls because the velocity wasn't as much as it is today, then I think he would have been more successful. I think now with exposure and scouting reports, he gets exposed. But I'll tell you what, people throw him high fastballs, and you know what? Sometimes he catches up to him and he hits him a mile. Like, he's just that explosive with his hands. So yes, I think he could. I think he could be much better than he is. I really do. I think Kris Bryant, and I guess he's hurt a lot, right? He gets hurt a lot, but I just feel like he hasn't lived up to that hype, because he was supposed to be like Juan Soto, right?
Well,
I mean, or better. Like, he was supposed to be the second coming when he came up. I mean, he hit 30 home runs in 56 college baseball games, for crying out loud, at the Division I level, and then he destroyed the minor leagues.
Yeah,
and then he got to the big leagues, and he's kind of just been like, I don't think the Cubs care if he's a Cub next year. I really like, he's not the franchise guy that he was supposed to be his first couple of years in the league. And I think he didn't make the adjustments necessary. I think he's the same guy that he probably was when he came up, and he hasn't made those adjustments. Maybe he can't. Maybe he's tried, and it's just ingrained in him.
Dexter Fowler in that World Series, 7 for 30, hit 233. Another guy, though, I want to talk about, Anthony Rizzo went 9 for 25 in that World Series, 3 doubles, a home run, 7 RBIs. Bryant hit 2 home runs, by the way, in that World Series. But Rizzo, 7 runs batted in. He was, again, 9 for 25, home run, 7 RBIs. 5 RBIs, excuse me. He scored 7 runs. Overall, though, he hit 360. He was tremendous in that World Series. To make the argument, and we're going to get to this guy in a second, Rizzo could have been the World Series MVP.
Yeah. I love Rizzo. I mean, I don't know why I like him so much. Some guys you just pull for. Maybe it's his personality. Maybe it's his, laissez-faire attitude out, playing. Like, he has fun. He has fun playing the game. But here's a guy that was somewhat highly touted, or pretty highly touted in the minor leagues.
Yeah.
In the beginning, and then fizzled, like was terrible with the Padres, right? And so he got traded there, and he was like, okay, well, he's getting older, and he got better. And he's a guy that makes adjustments all the time. Like his swing is so much different now than when he started, and sometimes it's funky, but he's trying to find ways to be better. And I think as a major league player, you have to do that. Like you have to adapt. You have to. And maybe when you have the luxury of having a big bank account, you can make those adjustments. It's not the end of the world, right? You're still going to get paid for your 2 or 3 year deal that you have. But I feel like he's constantly trying to better himself as a hitter and as a hitting guy. I think that's really cool.
Yeah. In this game 7, Kyle Schwarber batted in number 2 spot. He went 3 for 3. He had 3 hits. Maybe it wasn't 3 for 3. Let me double check.
3 for 5.
He was 3 for 5, yes. He had an interesting postseason. Here's why. Overall in the World Series, he had 412, 7 for 17 with 2 RBIs and 2 runs scored. He was at the training site in Arizona taking at bats in that World Series, or excuse me, in that postseason.
Oh, that's right.
Do you remember that? And then he came up,
that.
and then they said, "Look, we need you here in Chicago." And he made a real splash in the World Series again, hit 412, and he got 3 hits, as you mentioned, 3 for 5 in Game 7. What do you make of him? Because he's had certainly an up-and-down career offensively. He was optioned down back to AAA. They've been trying to figure out a position for him. He came up as a catcher. They tried him at first. They tried him at third at times. That's when they moved Bryant to the outfield. And then they moved Schwarber into left, and he hasn't been very good defensively there. So what do you make of his career thus far?
I don't remember him coming up, being like a huge name guy, and maybe because of his defense, right? But I mean, this is a big physical guy.
Yeah.
I mean, you put somebody with that kind of strength and you put a bat in their hand, they're going to do some damage. Now, what also that could mean is that has gotten him by to be a successful player, right? Which means he doesn't have the elite vision that somebody like Kris Bryant has, or the elite athleticism maybe that Bryant has, being able to play third or the outfield and read pitches. So I think Schwarber's a guy that, he works his craft, because I watch his swing. He used to swing uphill a ton. Like he used to dump and then really try to lift, which may have been part of the Cubs, forte back then. I'm not sure. But I watch him. I have BP swings of him where he's swinging like level and down. So to me, it's a guy who's trying to control his swing plane. Like when he gets into a game and it's natural, he swings up probably a little bit too much than he wants to. So he's constantly trying to flatten that during BP, which is I see Harper kind of doing the same thing. So we're always trying to find that yin to our yang, to find the best thing. So I feel like Schwarber's a hitter in terms of he's very strong and compact, but I feel that he isn't, necessarily he doesn't have the superstar qualities of somebody that has advanced genetic codes.
Sure.
I guess that's the best way to say it. I mean, there's just certain guys that do certain things. Like they see the game at a different level. Their instincts are a little bit different. They see things happen before they happen. They get that first step that is a half second before everyone else's. And I think Schwarber's a guy that works really hard for his craft to be successful. And those guys, those are the guys you want, because those are your unsung heroes. Those are your guys that lead by example. But if he's not doing well offensively, though, he's kind of one-dimensional, and now you're kind of stuck. Right? He needs to hope for the DH, the universal DH.
The World Series MVP that year was Ben Zobrist. He went 10 for 28, 2 doubles, a triple, 2 RBIs, 5 runs scored. He had 357. That's got to be one of your favorite players, ever. Ben Zobrist, utility guy.
It's funny you say that, because I always make fun of Ben Zobrist because of the one thing he does that drives me crazy. When he shakes the bat, the bat shake.
Oh,
he's the most
hands,
unathletic looking setup of any human being that has ever stepped in the batter's box. I shouldn't say that. There's been some weird one. But that whenever he gets in the box, I'm like, oh my God, this guy again.
Yeah.
And he was a scrappy guy. I don't know. I mean, we can look at ultra utility, yes. Did he get hot in the World Series? And yes. How did he? I mean, he won a World Series with the Royals, right? I think he's a winner. And I think that's why I like him. I think Ben Zobrist is a guy that's not an uber talented, crazy, and maybe he is, has these special talents. I think he seems to me like a gritty guy. Like, you give him an inch, he's going to take a foot kind of guy. I don't think he's, super fast. I don't think he's super smooth. I think he just gets stuff done. Now, I also don't know how he had 3 good years. I don't know. I don't know the Ben Zobrist career. I don't know. Did he play for 10 years? I don't think
he was with the Rays. He had a good career there. He's in my opinion, he is.
That's right. He did come through the Rays system.
He is the guy. He's the type of guy where scouts really make their money. You find a guy like that, a winner. He's won 2 World Series rings, not a Hall of Famer, but he's a World Series MVP. He gets that big hit in the 10th inning as he did in 2016. Great clubhouse guy. That's a winner right there. That's where scouts, when scouts always say it's easy to find the Kris Bryants of the world or the Anthony Rizzos of the world, the tools that pop out. Where we make our money is where we find guys who are kind of the underdog or the diamond in the rough, and Ben Zobrist is kind of.
He's a Midwestern guy, right?
Yeah,
he's not a Florida, Texas, California guy. Mm-hmm. I think he went to Dallas Baptist though.
Well, nevertheless, he's still a Midwest guy.
Still a Midway, right?
Yeah, not a big Division I program.
No, better now though. They've really come on the scene. But yeah, he's just kind of a steady guy.
Mm-hmm. So, here we are.
260. I mean, he's a 265 lifetime hitter.
How many home runs?
127.
Well, switch hitter, multiple positions. Yeah, he had himself a very nice career.
Yeah, I mean, he's just a scrap. He played I don't know how many years he played for. 14 years, 13 years.
I could certainly see managing in his career, coaching. Future career, definitely.
Yeah,
kind of a David Ross. But see, that's where the Cubs had in their clubhouse. Right. David Ross and Ben Zobrist. That's a lot of times what will help you win a World Series. So here we are, Game 7. Kyle Hendricks started for the Cubs against Corey Kluber, who was excellent during that postseason. But Corey Kluber kind of struggled a little bit, gave up 4 earned runs in 4 innings in that game. Kyle Hendricks didn't last long either. 2 runs, 1 of them earned, 4 hits, 4 2/3 innings. The Cubs jumped out to an early 1-0 lead. We mentioned it with that Dexter Fowler home run. But then Carlos Santana tied it in the bottom of the 3rd. The Cubs went on to score 2 in the 4th, 2 in the 5th, and then 1 in the 6th. The Indians went on to score 2 in the bottom of the 5th inning. And then the Cubs, of course, added that 1 insurance run to give them the 3-run lead in the 6th inning. And we fast forward here a little bit to John Lester coming out of the bullpen as well. Went 3 innings, pitched fairly well, gave up 1 earned run on 3 hits. But then Aroldis Chapman came out of the bullpen and blew the save. Lester gave up that leadoff single in the 8th inning. And then out comes out of the bullpen, Aroldis Chapman. And then, of course, in that 8th, the Indians went on to load the bases, and off the bench comes Rajai Davis to tie it up with that that home run.
Yeah, I mean, what a fun time that was for. I mean, that pitch wasn't even with 2-strike slider, I believe, down and in.
Yeah,
maybe it was a fastball. It was something down and in. Rajai just dropped the bat head on it, and I mean, for Rajai to hit a home run, right? He's not a home run guy, and that place went nuts. That was so exciting. That
Yeah.
Now the pitch. Swung on, line to deep left field. It is gone!
That was and it was a pitch that was down and in, if I remember correctly. It was a slider. I think it was a slider down and in. I was starting to wonder. I want to ask
Chapman hasn't had very good success with sliders.
No, I was starting to wonder. I'm starting to wonder with you, with a guy like Chapman. I want your opinion on this. As you start to notice this in the postseason where he hasn't been as sharp always in the postseason. Is it because he's just a big guy, throws really hard, and it's just his body can't hold up over 6 months? Because, again, at this time, if I remember correctly, with that in that game, Game 7, November 2nd, he was throwing. His fastball was averaging 97 to 99. Usually he's averaging triple digits, and his slider didn't have the same bite that it had, say, going back to July. I mean, is he a guy you think? I know this is we always talk
tired,
but
yeah.
Does he get tired? What do you think of him?
I don't know.
It's tough. I know.
He's tired. Yeah, I mean, this guy's in such amazing shape.
Yeah.
You know, people see him and they're like, "Oh, Chapman, because he's just so kind of lackadaisical out there. He's lazy." And that guy works out like a fiend. Like he is in tremendous shape. He runs a ton. He lifts a ton. Like he does his work. So you can't fault his preparation. I think he's a hard luck guy. I really do. I don't think his pitches are that. You know, I whenever I see him early in the year, I'm still like, okay, you're going to get 3 fastballs at the top of the zone at 100 miles an hour. Like, who's going to be able to hit that? You know, and some guys do and some guys don't. But then in the playoffs, they hit it. So and I don't know, are hitters just more dialed in, you know, in playoff games versus game, 110 or game 34, like where it's like, okay, Chapman's in, but now it's like the playoffs. Maybe they feel like, hey, Chapman gets rattled in the late innings of the playoffs. Now all of a sudden the hitters are a little bit more confident because they know they can get to him. I don't know.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about the gun, the radar gun, because years ago, and I don't know when that happened, and maybe we can talk about this on different times, but everybody talks about, I saw a really interesting tweet and I thought it was pretty good. And it said if hitters today played even like 10 years ago, they would completely dominate the game because pitchers didn't throw as hard and nobody was shifting as much.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, that's a pretty cool statement right there. He's not comparing 1950s, or the 40s or, that generation. It was like, 10 years ago when there wasn't the shift. And I kind of agree with him, but there was, they did adjust the way that pitches are read. Like now it's read right out of the hand, the maximum speed versus it used to be read halfway to the plate. So I will tell you, between the hand and home plate is about 7 mile an hour difference on a fastball.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, like hand to glove, it's like 6 to 7 miles an hour from 55 feet. That's how much about release point to home plate. So so when I thought they used to do it halfway, like they used to take the average, but now they take it at the hand, and I feel like everybody's when they say, oh, what's his name only threw 9, average major league fastball was only 92 back then. Well, 92 is like 95 or 96 now.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to bring that to light when they made that. I don't know what year they did it. Maybe it was 2010, 12, 16, 18. I don't know when it was, but I'll have to look that up.
Okay.
Because I really don't think that.
So you're saying guys threw harder. You're saying guys threw harder than what was perceived back then?
Yes.
10, 20 years ago?
Or
they threw like what guys throw now on average?
I think 94 then was 97 now.
Oh wow. Okay. But it wasn't But can I make the argument it wasn't as often though, right? That guys were throwing.
So. I don't think you had that many guys.
Yeah.
But I think this guy said, the average major league fastball was like 89 or 90, something like that, right? And now it's like, okay, so maybe that's 92, 93. What is the average major league fastball now? Is it right around there? I don't know.
Yeah.
But we can't just say, oh, pitching is, because it could be perceived velocity. It could be, okay, we changed the way we read things. Just like there's an algorithm that changed how home runs are calculated, on TrackMan. Now they're going to use a different system, and I don't know.
Right.
Got to compare apples to apples is all I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, in that game, Chapman wasn't throwing as hard as he usually did, and he gave up that home run to Davis to tie it. Both teams were held scoreless in the ninth. You remember they had that 17-minute rain delay.
That's right.
You remember that.
That's right.
That's what pushed this game to be over 4 hours. It was almost a half hour game.
Right.
Yeah. Well, during that rain delay, and this is according to the Chicago Tribune, Cubs right fielder Jason Hayward called for a team meeting and told them we're the best team in baseball for a reason. Stick together and we're going to win this game. And they went out there in the 10th inning. They scored 2 runs in the top of the 10th. Kyle Schwarber led it all off Bryant Shaw. Kris Bryant hit a deep fly ball to center. Albert Almora, who was pinch running for Kyle Schwarber, tagged up, advanced to second. And then, of course, after Rizzo was intentionally walked, Ben Zober stepped up. He was 0 for 4 in the game up to that point, but then he delivered that clutch RBI double, and the Cubs went on to score those 2 runs. The Indians scored a run in the bottom of the 10th, but ultimately they fell short, and the final out recorded 5-3 Kris Bryant to Anthony Rizzo.
A little bouncer slowly toward Bryant. He will glove it and throw to Rizzo. It's in time, and the Chicago Cubs win the World Series. The Cubs come.
There you go. And Chicago has went nuts.
And for the next week, all you heard was that Cubs song that they play when they win.
Yeah, right. Their own song. And everybody had a W flag in my neighborhood because we have all these Chicago transplants in here.
Okay.
And you know what? I haven't seen those flags since. That's all I got to say.
Oh, so you're saying that they are fair weather fans.
Right. No, I'm just saying that when they get excited, they get really excited.
Okay.
All right, so I just looked up that
fair weather.
Look like it was no, not fair weather fans. I think it was 2017. 2017 or so is this article. It looks like it's only 1 mile an hour. Mm-hmm. When StatCast Pitch FX changed to StatCast or something, it went from essentially 93.5 miles an hour to 94.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Anyway, so it was about almost a mile an hour uptick, not 3 to 4. So it wasn't that big of a difference.
Well, that wraps up this week's episode talking about the Cubs in Game 7. I hope we hit on everything. If we didn't, please feel free to email us, jimbopodcast21@gmail.com. Again, jimbopodcast21@gmail.com. What do you make of that Cubs team? Just looking back on it now, what lasting legacy do you think that team has? Because if they didn't win the World Series that year, there's no guarantee they would have done it in the next years, and then the year after that, and here they are, maybe on the cusp of possibly rebuilding as we do this episode in 2020. So what do you think the lasting legacy of that team will be?
Leadership. I think that was a team of leaders. Mm-hmm. I think a team of personalities. You had a pretty good mix of veterans in there. Even Miguel Montero, right? Didn't he spend a lot of time with the Diamondbacks? Like he was later in his career. Mm-hmm. Hayward, Zobrist got experience. Rizzo, great personality. Bryant was young, but obviously, he and Rizzo have a special relationship. So I think it was a team, that was assembled correctly. And David Ross, right, was on that team. So pitching wise, Lester he couldn't pick anyone off back then. He never threw to first base. That was like a big deal. And then they went and bought Chapman for that year, if I'm not mistaken, right? They got him that year, and then he went back to New York the next year. So, whatever they did, they did it right. Joe Madden pulled all the right scenarios out of his hat, and they got themselves a ring, and that's what the city of Chicago needed.
Yeah. And Joe Madden is no longer with the organization. They've gone through some changes, and we'll see what happens in 2021. You mentioned that core, Kris Bryant may not be a Cub next year. That core may be breaking up. So I thought it was one of the best postseasons in the last 5 years. And again, on the anniversary today, November 2nd, of the Cubs winning the World Series, Game 7, finally breaking that curse. It was a very fun game, too. And by the way, TV ratings were through the roof for that. 40 million people tuned into Game 7 of the World Series that year, Indians against the Cubs. 40 million people.
And they also broke a record on the W flags that were sold in the United States.
For those fair weather fans, as you mentioned. Well, be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast. Again, new episodes every Monday at 9 a.m. We are on multiple platforms, iHeart, Pandora, TuneIn, wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Google, Spotify. And be sure to email us, too, your questions, jimbopodcast21@gmail.com. Follow Ep and I on Instagram and Twitter, @EpsteinHitting, @JimTara. I do have a question for the podcast this week. It comes to us via my Instagram, @JimTara. From 80 number 5, he writes, Hi, Jim. I have a question for the podcast. What is the best approach for kids transitioning from coach pitch to kid pitch? I coach my son's team, and it seems like when I tell the kids to be aggressive, they swing at bad pitches. Also, when they face a kid who is throwing strikes, they're often late. What are some things parents and coaches can do to help these young players with a simple approach and timing? Good question from a loyal listener in AD number 5.
Yeah, that's what a great question. And I mean, it's we deal with that at the lab all the time because we have elementary groups. It's our youngest group, and we see teams practicing. And, you know, coach pitch is great. Everything's a strike. Kids aren't afraid. So typically when kids throw to other kids, they're afraid and they stride late. They wait to read the pitch. Is it going to hit me or is it going to be a strike? Then they make up their mind to step and swing. That's a problem. That problem leads much further down the road that we see with 10, 11-year-olds. So my suggestion is to increase the velocity a little bit, use a machine. If have the kids inner squat a lot, have the kids throw bullpens, you know, if they're pitching at practice, have a hitter in there. Doesn't mean they have to swing, but have a hitter in there facing them. Maybe do a scrimmage once a week, even if it's just every kid gets one at bat kind of scrimmage against one of the pitchers that are getting their work done. So I'm a big fan of the more reps they can see, the better. And machines can really help with that because especially if you have a machine with a good feeder like we do where the kids can time it, you can get them to stride before the ball comes out. Okay, it doesn't mean they're striding early and stopping, but they're starting the motion of loading and stepping as that ball is getting released. And if we can change it so they can stride and think yes, 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 no on every pitch versus I don't know, yes, it's a strike, and then they're late, or, you know, they take it because it's a ball, that's just a bad habit to get into. So we got to get into that yes, 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 no mindset. And the best way to do that is to just give them a little velocity off a machine, have them try to time it early. You know, you can use a hack attack machine if you guys have access to those. And you don't have to have the big old barrel feeders. You can use just a small 15 ball feeder, and that will really help the kids get going.
Well, great episode this week. Next week, episode number 29, we'll be talking about approaches and different counts. And I mentioned, you and I talked about that prior to recording the episode. You're pretty excited for that topic next week.
I'm easily excited, Jim. Anytime I get to talk to you, I'm excited. But yes,
a lot of
changing. Yeah, I know they do.
You're not in the minority there.
Yes. Changing approach mid at bat. That'll be pretty cool stuff to talk about.
We'll talk about that next week. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe. Thank you. We'll talk to you next week, everybody.